Let's talk some chess. So I googled funny chess games, the games that had something funny or interesting happen during them, and no surprise, but probably the funniest, most famous funny chess game in history is this game played in 2008 by Hikaru Nakamura. He's playing against Rybaka, which is a computer, so similar to Stockfish. It's a computer engine that plays chess. This was in the Internet Chess Club is the site of the game. Yeah, this is a crazy game. You've never seen anything like it. Of course, kudos to Hikaru for creating this masterpiece. I think it's awesome and hilarious, and he talks about it on his channel as well. So I'll link that video below. But just wanted to share it with this audience because it's awesome, and you'll see what I mean. So Rybaka opens up with G4, already sort of a weird move. We have D5 by Nakamura, and I'm going to go fast with these moves, and you'll see the reason for that pretty soon. H3, so protecting the pawn from the bishop. We have H5 by Hikaru, challenging this pawn. Weird moves, but yeah, you'll see the point of this game. G5, ignoring the pawn. G6, locking it up, and now D4, striking in the center. We have bishop to G7 by Hikaru, attacking this pawn, which is currently defended by the queen. And knight to C4, attacking this pawn, which is also defended by the queen. C6, knight to F3, bishop to C5, threatening this pawn, and now knight to H4, attacking the bishop. So the bishop is now protected by the pawn on E6. We have knight takes, pawn takes, and bishop to F4. Knight to E7, E3, protecting the bishop. Hikaru castles kingside. Queen to D2. Knight to D7, and Rybaka castles queenside. And I know I'm moving through this quickly, but again, you'll see why in a moment. We have rook to E8, bishop to G2, knight to F8, bishop to E5, knight to E6, and now F4, cementing this bishop on E5. Knight moves away, king moves to B1, knight to D6, and now bishop to F1. And it seems like both players aren't really thinking about attacking, and I think that's definitely the case with Hikaru. He's not really thinking about creating an attack and exploiting the open space on the queen side. I think Rybaka just can't really find a good way to get past Hikaru's very stout defenses here. These pawns are a fortress. It's hard to sort of break through on the king side. So queen to D7, A4, and now we get a bunch of moves where the two sides are essentially sparring to sort of create space. So I'm just going to go through those quick, and you'll see why. You can sort of just see the pieces moving around, and both players don't really have decisive moves to sort of break through. So we're getting into a locked position where all the pawns essentially can't move. There's an exchange here, a knight for a bishop. But essentially we now reach this position where you can't push any of these pawns. So for most of them, they're actually locked, but for the pawns that can move, you don't want to move them, because if you move them, you sort of allow this breakthrough. So you don't want to move the F6 pawn because of G takes on F6. You don't want to move, same with C5, C4, all these moves. These pawns need to stay where they are. Otherwise, you're giving the other player an opportunity to break through and push all the pawns away. And the material is completely equal here. This is a totally drawn position. Humans would probably agree to a draw here, but the computer wants to fight on in this position. So we just get a bunch of moves back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, a ton of moves. You can see Hikaru is just moving his bishop back and forth, whereas Rybaka is like trying to organize its forces and figure out the proper orientation for the rooks to be in and the queen to be. And here Hikaru appears to make a mistake. He plays rook to E6, which allows knight to C5, and that forks the rook and the queen. So this will be down the exchange. But if you watch Hikaru talk about this game, he actually wanted to give up the exchange, and the reason why. So after queen moves, knight takes, queen takes. Now the computer is up material. So the computer has a material advantage, which helps to convince the computer that it should continue playing, essentially. And I think Hikaru calls it something else. But the computer's like, okay, I have material advantage. This isn't a draw. I need to keep playing and press that advantage. So that's the idea behind the exchange sacrifice. And again, this is still totally drawn. You can't push any of these pawns. These rooks are completely powerless. They can't get past all of these pawns. It's a drawn position. So we get another 50 moves. And remember, in chess, the draw rule is that if you have 50 moves without a piece being captured or check, then the game is drawn and it's over. So we have another 50 moves of just Hikaru moving his rook back and forth, where both sides are trying to find an advantage, but they can't, right? Because you can't seriously take any of this material. You can't move any other pieces, so they're just waiting. So we have 49 moves of waiting. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then right before... Let's see. It takes a while. You can see why it's a funny game. Okay, right before that 50 moves is up, and we would have a draw because of no captures or no checks, Hikaru puts his bishop on e4. Now we get bishop to d3, attacking the rook. I'm sorry, he put his rook on e4. Now you get bishop to, attacking the rook, and he just ignores it and plays queen to e6. So another exchange sacrifice, bishop takes, and now pawn takes on e4. So again, 2 exchange sacrifices. Now the material is, much better for the computer. On paper, 2 rooks to a knight and a bishop. So the computer is really incentivized to keep going because it's like, I have this material advantage. I need to, keep playing and keep playing to win. So again, there's no moves that make sense that actually move pawns forward or move pieces forward. So we have another 50 moves. Okay, and then the key here is Hikaru also gives up his queen, so reduces the material even more. So knight takes, and now we have another 50 moves before a capture. So Hikaru is literally just moving his bishop back and forth, which is just hilarious. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And there's going to come a point where is it? Almost there. Okay, and now this I think was move 49, and if you make another move without capturing or without checking your opponent, then the game is a draw, and the computer has to make a decision now. Do you go for the draw or do you go for the win? And again, because the computer is up material and it has these 2 rooks, the computer says, you know what, I can go for this. I'm not going to be happy with the draw. I'm going to make a move to try to keep the game going. And the only move in this case that either captures a piece or creates a check, or kind of leads to one of those outcomes. So sorry, I should clarify. Ignore what I said. The only move that leads to a non-drawn position in this position is c4. And what's hilarious is this is a terrible move because it just allows Hikaru to open up on the queen side and break through. But the computer is basically saying, I would rather have this than a draw because I have 2 rooks to Hikaru's knight and bishop. So it's just a hilarious bug that Hikaru totally manipulated, and we get this crazy game where the computer hangs on because it's up material, but now Hikaru is just going to break through. So d takes on c5, and now we have a breakthrough. This is now a powerful passed pawn on c4. The king moves out of the way, and the bishop just jumps right into the game on d5. And now you have a lot of vulnerable pawns all of a sudden. You have a vulnerable pawn on b4, which the bishop is attacking. The knight is attacking the pawn on e3. It's attacking the pawn on h4. And now all of a sudden the position is going to fall apart for the computer. So king to a3, protecting this pawn. But now knight to f7, and the king is now threatening to walk into the game and cause a ruckus. So rook to b2, knight to d5. Now a double attack on the b4 pawn, also attacking the e3 pawn. So now the king and the rook are committed to defending this pawn. Rook to g3, and now the king starts to march through this gap. We have rook to b1, bishop to e7. Hikaru can wait all he wants. And now the computer just puts the rook on h3, and this is essentially game. Well, we'll see. We get bishop to d6 first, and now the king moves away. And now, well, I guess not yet. And now we get this bishop takes on b4, and now these pawns are just going to come in force and storm the enemy king. So the bishop is attacking the rook. Rook moves. Bishop picks up the pawn on a5, and now you have 4 passed pawns on the king side, and you can envision how that's going to go. King moves, and now Hikaru just starts to push his pawns and push his pawns, and there's nothing really that the computer can do about it. So eventually the best move is to block the pawn on c2. So rook blocks, pawn takes, and now the knight finally takes on f3. This is a knight sack, but not really, because if the rook takes, then you just promote to a queen, and that's great. So instead, we have king there, and then all the pieces are just captured by Hikaru, and we don't have to go through every single move because you sort of get the point. He marches his pawns all the way down the board. Okay, and now is the last kind of funny part. Instead of promoting to queens and finishing the game quickly, he promotes all his pieces to bishops and knights. So we just have a bunch of bishops and knights on the board. Now we have the 6 bishops versus a king, and this is just stuff that you see in like very silly puzzles. But it happened. It happened in on the board with a chess grandmaster against a computer. So now the king just runs around, and the bishops just dance around and follow it. And there's no point in analyzing this because it's just hilarious. And let's just get to the final mating picture. Boom. So there we go. You have 5 bishops mating the king on A8. So this is not easy to do, to stack these bishops, kind of like a Tetris block over here. And these are great bishops because they're protecting each other, obviously, and checking the king. And yeah, that's it. So an awesome game. I think it's a super funny game. It exploits the fact that the computer will keep playing and will not draw because it's up a material advantage. And it just played many like 49 move increments that just prevented the draw, and then you get this obviously iconic final mating picture. So thank you to Hikaru for creating this masterpiece for us mortals to witness. Super fun. Let me know if you have any other games that you want to see that are like this. Drop a like, drop a subscribe, and we'll see you next time.